It does have the Port of Pascagoula, but it's an order of magnitude smaller than the major ports along the Gulf of Mexico. The state also suffered brain drain because its education system, even to this day, is not nearly as developed as most other states, which means a majority of its highest ranking students leave the state to attend university, and given the lack of opportunity, many of them don't come back, choosing instead to get a better paying job in one of the states home to big global companies. That leaves behind people that aren't as skilled to compete for what few opportunities the state has left. In macroeconomic systems that enable the free flow of resources between different entities, it's almost always better to be a big fish in a little pond, but unfortunately Mississippi was the poorest state in the USA. Aside from these challenges, there was also just the basic element of being in the wrong business at the wrong time. Mississippi was all in on agriculture as modern industry became the next big thing, and then all in on modern industry as the US economy shifted to advanced services. So, with all of these challenges, it's almost a better question to ask, how has Mississippi remained so successful? It sounds like a strange question to ask about the poorest state in the USA, but as an economy that has faced all of these challenges while playing in the most competitive area in the world, and still remain more productive than places like France and the UK, it's a question worth asking. Well, for starters, the state had a very high level of inequality, only really falling behind other states like New York, which are hurt by having one megacity attached to an otherwise normal state, inherently giving it a certain level of inequality. It's also, on average, a poorer economy, so the inequality in Mississippi is caused by a lot of people being relatively poor as opposed to a small group being extremely rich. Even though the average person in Mississippi is just as productive as the average person in Germany, the majority of people are poorer, leading to the problems that are usually associated with the economy, even if it's doing quite well on paper. The state also gets a lot of benefits from being in the USA, not least of which is just a source of funding. Mississippi is one of the most financially dependent states on federal spending in versus federal taxes out. A state like California pays $5 in federal taxes for every $1 it receives in direct support, whereas Mississippi only sends $1.19 for every $1 it receives in direct support. Now, we've done the maths here, and $1.19 is still more than $1, but that's just direct support. Mississippi also benefits from a lot of indirect programs. For a state that is not famous for its highly technical industries, Mississippi is home to a lot of advanced military manufacturing and testing facilities. According to the state's own governor, Mississippi is ranked 5th amongst all states in defence GDP and 21st in defence contract spending. Impressive statistics for a state with a relatively small population and relatively few technical centres. Mississippi may not be the logical place to set up operations for major government contract suppliers, but it's a state that gets just as many senators in DC as every other one, and with such a strong dependence on this kind of spending to prop up an otherwise non-competitive industry, these operations ensure that big contractors always have at least 2 more friendly politicians looking out for them. Now, of course, the details of arrangements like this are better handled by actual political experts over on our sister channel Context Matters, but as for the economy of Mississippi itself, these kinds of incentives mean that so long as the state is in the USA, it's never going to fall too far behind. Alright, now it's time to put Mississippi on the Economics Explained leaderboard. We're also going to start ranking US states in a separate list because apparently Americans are really into a bit of healthy rivalry. Anyway, starting as always with size, Mississippi has a GDP of $140 billion US, making it the 38th largest US state by total output. If it was its own independent economy, assuming all other things remain the same and it somehow still got US federal support, it would be the 60th largest in the world, roughly in line with Morocco and Ukraine. So it gets a 5 out of 10. GDP per capita is low by US standards, at $47,190, but that's very solid by global standards, as we have already discussed, putting it in line with countries like Germany. It gets a nice, healthy 8 out of 10. Stability and confidence is also very strong. It uses the world's reserve currency, and it has the support of the US economy as a whole to protect it from things getting too bad. It gets a 9 out of 10, only really brought down by the uncertainty caused by natural disasters that seem to be getting more frequent and worse. Growth has been relatively weak. Again, the economy hasn't so much fallen behind as other states have just grown up around it. Over the last decade, it's achieved an annualised growth rate of around 1%, which is still going in the right direction, but it's well behind a lot of other US states, and it gives it a 5 out of 10. Finally, industry. The state has had a lot of challenges, many of them self-inflicted when trying to build out industry. Its current industries are far from self-sufficient and probably wouldn't exist without continuous outside support. Even still, with output that high, it really can't get anything less than a 7 out of 10. Altogether, that gives Mississippi an average score of 6.8 out of 10, putting it up here on the everything leaderboard and down here on the state leaderboard. Now, the logical point of comparison to Mississippi is Florida, another state in the same region with just a few small changes that has recently become one of the most promising economies in the USA. We've made an entire video on that, which you should be able to click to on your screen now. Thanks for watching, mate. Bye.